Hey guys, this is Super Tycon, and this is part 4 of my series on how to defeat Longswords in Hellish Quart. And this time I'm just gonna go through a bunch of matches that have happened fairly recently. This is a pretty wide collection, some from the USFC, one from the random tourney, and one from this recent glorified sparring tourney, as it's called. This was put on by Volblut Koala literally yesterday, as you can see here. And this is a fight I had with Warden. This is the one we're gonna start with. Let's get right into this. Again, the whole idea here is to just show people that it is very possible to defeat longswords, even with weapons like sabers. And there's no question they're powerful, as you're going to see in these videos. Not all of these are going to be wins, exactly, for sabers, but nonetheless, it should be enlightening, I think. And it's really important, I think, to approach these arguments with facts and evidence and not emotions, right? So this will hopefully show that Isabella and Zara are not overpowered. But as you might see here, it's a little peculiar because I'm using Isabella to start this fight against Warden. Why did I do that? Because I'm the guy who's been preaching, using sabers against longswords. Well, I figured I'd have a better chance with longsword just based on my recent experience against Maestro Cake. Keep in mind, I'm a very good Isabella player too, so I know how good Warden is, and I'm thinking maybe I can match him better if I'm using the same weapon. So I'm more so playing a chess match, and I'm playing by the same rules. The problem is Warden is going to proceed to just absolutely destroy me, so that's not really going to work out well, as you're going to see here. To maintain to keep the chess analogy, I guess. Essentially, what happened was I was going into a blitz game against a computer, right? Against some, or either that or a grandmaster who's just so much better than I am, and I just get absolutely destroyed, and I do not know what to do. So let's play this video here. Ignore the Discord notification. So I'm kind of testing the waters here. I get the first kill. We end up running into problems pretty early on, though, so I'll just let it play for now. But I do get an early kill. This doesn't really matter. But I'm feeling pretty confident at this point, now that I've gotten that kill. So let's try and skip to the real fight here. Warden had an issue with his controller, and so he wasn't able to move properly. So I don't really feel that proud about this first kill, but it certainly upped my confidence a bit. I think this is when it, hang on. It does not. Yeah, we had to grapple with this for a bit. Ah, here we go. Okay. Yeah, you can already see 7. Like, I literally just skipped a little bit, and Warden has 7 points over me. It's amazing how quickly he just destroys me. Alright, here we go. So again, I'm trying to just feel things out here and focus on counter-striking, reacting to what Warden's doing. He nearly kills me there with that dash already, but I managed to get out of the way, but unfortunately he follows it up before I can do much of anything, and Warden's very much has initiative here. That time I dashed too close and got snap cut in the head, could not even defend. It just felt like I couldn't do anything to respond to him with longsword. No matter what I did, he could counter me. There, I got a point there, and I'm pretty proud of that one. He exposed his head with that upward cut, and then I get a quick kill. And then Warden gets an excellent thrust to the body. I've often underestimated the effectiveness of these because the accuracy has been messed with lately. They're definitely not as powerful as they used to be, but they're still well placed. They can do some damage, and Warden gets another kill despite the trade. And you can definitely see I'm getting kind of flustered here. I throw a high guard cut completely out of measure, so big mistake in my part. Warden capitalizes. Sidestep. And Warden's doing very good at this movement stuff. Again, it's like playing a computer or someone who's just so much better than you. And I'm not very practiced with Isabella, I would say, compared to Alexander. As I've said a lot of times, Alexander is really my main, not Isabella whatsoever. So, I get a kill here. the A cut, very precisely done, but in hindsight, really, I should have just opened up with Alexander. And so that's a situation, as you'll see, where Saber actually proves to be the superior weapon option for me to Longsword. I still lose the fight, but I nonetheless do better with Saber than I do with Longsword. So it's interesting how that dynamic can work. And I do get a kill here. Warden makes the same mistake I did earlier with the high guard cut. Very easy one to make, especially if you really want that kill. Here we clash some swords a little bit. Unfortunately, Warden has a dominant position there, so clanning blades together was not to my advantage. And Warden immediately, you can see again, sidesteps with the upward cut, hitting my exposed arm and follows it up. And there's a high guard cut, actually crashing through his defense. And I hope this goes to show, too, that the longsword doesn't have an impenetrable guard by any means. This was a funny grapple glitch here where we both actually end up getting a point. It's not supposed to be how it goes. Doubles are not supposed to count. But it is to Warden's advantage as he finishes it up here with a good sidestep cut to the head with the Y cut. And it's at this point I'm like, okay, Isabella is not working, right? There's just no way in hell I'm going to defeat him with Isabella. Warden, somehow, he hasn't really practiced much to my knowledge, but it is worth noting, though, he's considered by most to be the best player in the game, and this is why. Even without practice, he's just a beast. There's a reason why he has the most wins under his belt, and he has a lot of fighting game experience, too. So I go with Alexander here. Not a good start there with the high guard cut. I think I made that whole video about stopping those high guard cuts. You're not going to see a whole lot of that done here because I'm just really nervous going into this fight. And so Warden gets an early lead here. But nonetheless, you will see me perform much better. Right now I'm using a lot of movement. But again, those side steps, I just can't seem to react to them very well, at least at this point. And here I force a double, but that was still not ideal at all. Wasn't defending myself. And here Warden's doing a fancy combo, but I punish him immediately. So I was doing good with that, at least, with the Saber. And as you can see already, I'm faring better with Saber than I am with Longsword. And here I get a good thrust and then a cut, and I even it up, right? Already I have more initiative using the Saber, using the advantages the Saber has over the Longsword. The Longsword might have power and leverage, but the Saber can attack from angles the Longsword can't, and sometimes it's better in the pocket, and the range can be quite deceptive. Certain Sabers, like Alexander's, can also hit harder than people might expect. Nonetheless, that was a very good low cut by Warden, getting around my guard. So we're evenly matched at this point now that I'm using my actual main. Saber is my specialty after all, and Alexander's my main. In hindsight, it's not very surprising I'm doing better like this, but nonetheless, Warden gets a kill. My hit was not very clean. Warden does a good job of backing off and feinting, trying to get me to come in. That was a really weird whiff there, unfortunate for me. Warden gets a point. I was in the pocket, so I thought I had him, but not quite. And there's a head bob attempt. It was a good try. Probably not the ideal way to deal with that cut, though, as I have previously discussed. Nonetheless, it forces a double. And here, thankfully, his cut didn't hit me that second time, so I get a kill. If I can hit that head reliably, I can get pretty reliable kills. So the arms and the head with longswords are still quite exposed, especially if you time your swings properly. And here I'm just trying a bunch of cancel combos, doing some cuts. Still very much in the back foot here, and unfortunately my guard just did not work there. I don't think the positioning was advantageous either way, though. As we've talked about strong versus weak, he was swinging towards the weak, I would say. So not very good. And there's another forced double. But I don't think these forced doubles are to my advantage at this point. And, because I'm down at points and I'm certainly not in the best mental state after being destroyed earlier. So, yeah, a lot of these fights do come down to that sort of mentality as you go in. And it's what I've been talking about earlier. If you go into a fight with the mentality you're going to lose, or that your opponent's using an overpowered character, you're going to have trouble. In this case, it's not the character, it's the person I'm fighting that I'm concerned about more than anything, of course. It's not that Isabella is overpowered, it's that Warden is just insane. And as we'll see later, that's really what it comes down to. It's player skill. Longswords are powerful, but the player skill and the tactics used are what will decide it. There, he just killed me with the tip of the blade. Amazing. And I get a push in and then 2 cuts. Definitely faring much better. I look way more comfortable with Alexander than I did with Isabella, I would say. There's some fancy footwork. I get lucky because that tip definitely hit my neck. And I don't know why I went for a stab there. That was just a terrible idea, that close. I think it was because I was seeing that my stabs were getting really easy hits, and so I wanted to utilize that to my advantage. And there's a cut I got. The thing with sabers too is they have curved blades. That curved blade can really come in handy against straight blades when it comes to point work, even though cutting is really their strength. Even with Alexander, where I like using the point sometimes, you can see the cuts are really where the strength comes in. And there I got a pretty good hit. No kill. So Warden backs off. You can see he backs off oftentimes to either draw me in or when he knows he's in danger. He has very good fight IQ. And so he only needs one more at this point, and he goes for it. I used that to my advantage with perfect distance management and that backward slash. Very deadly with Alexander if you hit the head. It's the kind of thing you want to do with sabers, definitely. You don't want to play the Longswords game, you want to play your game. And unfortunately, I think I was panicking here. I threw just a bunch of swings. Or I missed an input, either one. Maybe a bit of both. Warden gets it. That X cut was not a good idea. It didn't reach far enough. A Y cut might have managed to hit him. It's hard to say. But nonetheless, Warden defeated me, but you can see that Saber was still the superior option. It was not Longsword that was the superior option because of what I'm familiar with and what I'm good with, etc. And that's the point. Longsword is not objectively better. It's the whole point of the series. So now here we got Maestro Cake against Oaken in the USFC. Check Vineyard out here. Wine Divine on YouTube. We host these events very often, and the link to our PvP Discord will be below if you want to participate in these events. Alright, so Oaken is a very good Laszlo player. Maestro, as we've seen before, I think he's a very good longsword fighter. I've definitely shown him on my channel before. So Maestro gets an early kill there actually with again, the upward slash to the arm, but Oaken quickly replies there. Laszlo, in my opinion, is one of the best counters to Isabella. Can definitely fight with her toe to toe. I think with Zara as well if you play him right. Very powerful saber character, and there he gets an easy kill. And Oaken's very good at this distance management. Here, a double is forced. And I would say both of these fighters are largely evenly matched. And that's what we're going to see here. Yeah, Maestro's using a longsword, but you'd think if longsword is overpowered, surely Maestro would just be utterly dominating this whole fight. But that's not what happens at all. And it's not the trend we see in the competitive play lately. And Oaken, perhaps he could have cut, but that upward cut is very good. That Meister is very good at landing those, and that often will guard those openings. You have to be a bit careful. Probably better to let that cut whiff, especially with Laszlo, because Laszlo has that exposed arm. Arm hit city with Laszlo if you're not careful. And there's a double. Very easy to get doubles in this matchup. And very good footsies by Oaken. Apologies for the little bit of lag here. Oaken gets a kill. I'm not the one filming this. This was Vinard, and unfortunately, I think he was having some internet issues at the time, so you might see some slight lag. Have to consider the different locations too. Vinard's from Europe. Either way, Oaken here actually has a lead at this point, and then there's another forced double. And it's only one flag, so these fighters are evenly matched, but yeah, Maestro closes the gap here. But again, we're seeing Saber competing with Longsword head to head. And yet another double, right? She's very evenly matched here. This is a very, very intense fight. And then there, Maestro, you can see he's attacking the openings, right? He's not just sort of powering through Oaken's guard and using brute force like a lot of people probably imagine Longsword's doing. Maestro still has to play very precisely to get the kills that he gets. Otherwise, it's a double where he gets hit in the head and Oaken gets a win, right? That type of thing. And Laszlo has very fast footwork. Can be a bit of a speed demon. Maestro forces an interesting double there. That's just something a lot of characters who hit hard can do. Not a longsword only thing by any means, though sometimes longswords have wonky animations. And Oaken with a very good sidestep. Risky on his part, but he gets it. And I think he needs to take some risks here. If he's too passive, then Maestro can exploit that. And this is down to the last flag here. And, another double. Like so often happens when two fighters are evenly matched. You get all these doubles. Good parry by Oaken. You can see there he effortlessly parried that longsword swing. Even with that rather exposed looking guard, it's totally possible. And he sidesteps and gets a cut to the head. Very key opening for both longsword characters there. And Oaken exploits it really well. Oaken's very good at doing that. You can sometimes use it to gain a tempo. You get a parry, and you sidestep and hit the open head as the longsword is brought down. Very good way to win with Laszlo, or many Saber characters for that matter. But Laszlo is very good at it. Next round. See a long guard by Maestro effortlessly parried there, and then an upward slash by Oaken. So that's another thing. Those thrusts can be surprisingly easy to sort of beat down and block. Another kill by Oaken. You can see early on the Saber is the one getting the advantage, not the longsword. And Oaken with very good positioning stays out of danger and gets a really quick snipe there. And again a kill. Sometimes the lag causes things to go in slow motion, which is really nice for analysis. I don't have to mess with any settings to slow things down. And then Maestro with a kill. Hit to the arm. That's his first kill. Oaken has 4 flags. But Maestro can easily close the gap because of his skill. There's no doubt about that. Good kill with that upward slash. Something Laszlo has to watch out for. But Maestro gets punished immediately there when he tries it again. And then Oaken perfect hit to the head. Just look at how effortlessly he punishes Maestro. And that's all because of distance management and timing. If you can manage distance well, longswords can just be picked apart. Obviously, it goes both ways. It's a principle of sword fighting in general, but it's definitely something you want to look for when you're using sabers. You want to effortlessly and brutally punish any mistake that longsword makes, so that it doesn't matter how hard that thing hits. You're in there immediately and killing your opponent as soon as possible. And so Oaken needs one more, as you can see. And he's forcing doubles, which is to his benefit psychologically, I would say, in this situation. Because Oaken feels secure. He knows he can keep forcing those doubles, and he doesn't have to worry about anything. And if Maestro makes one mistake, then he's just out of the fight. Whereas if Oaken makes a mistake, he can just adapt. So. And Oaken kind of testing the waters with that lunge and another double. But again, he's probably feeling very good about those at this time. I can't speak for him, of course, but I imagine he's very happy with that. He does the 1-2 combo, but there's yet another double. Another thing is, Oaken is from Russia, I believe, so he's from pretty far away. And yet he's still on a North American host. He still does very well with this distance management. It has to do with my connection being very good. I'm the one hosting, not Vinard, so that obviously helps a lot too. And Maestro gets away with that trade. He's slowly closing the gap, and he's doing a very good job of that. Very good resilience on Maestro's part. Definitely got to give credit where credit's due there. And then the upward cut, though. Oaken catching Maestro as he comes in, getting another win. And that wins him the round there. So, and there's a double. Yeah, you're going to probably see a lot of these. But, yeah, you can see Oaken going for that sidestep there, but Maestro manages to force the double, which is good for him. And Maestro catches Oaken coming in. Sometimes that 1-2 combo of Laszlo is very predictable. And Maestro is a very good counter striker, so. But Maestro gets punished there, trying to dip under with a fancy cut there. But Oaken just cuts him straight across the head. And another double. And a double. Oh, man. And Meister goes with high guard there, and I think Oaken had the right idea. It's a bit awkward if Laszlo's guard. So double is forced instead of a victory for Oaken. Perhaps a better idea would have been backing off, but it's hard to say. Maestro might have had the sense not to swing if he did so. And Oaken with a good retreating cut. Again, an opening advantage for the saber, not the longsword. And there, the longsword wins the trade. That often can happen, but as we've seen, the saber can easily compete. They have equal cutting power, I would say, to a longsword in this game. Obviously, maybe some characters are a bit weaker than others when it comes to cutting power, but it's not to do with the weapon specifically necessarily. Another double. Yeah, so this is going to be a pretty long one, but I think I was saying I plan to do a fifth part, but I think this will just be the end of the series. Unless something comes up, there's sort of a myth of Zera that came up recently that hopefully by the end of this will be fully debunked as well. Less of a focus on Isabella, so I guess my videos have been doing something, but yeah, I'm gonna debunk both of those myths. Those wins against Pekla and Toasted Bread should go a long way, I think, so. And again, a very even fight here. Like, and Oaken made a mistake there. He went for the stab. That's really what it's coming down to. It's coming down to mistakes. Not one character dominating the other. And Oaken gets a good parry, but unfortunately his hand goes straight into that swing. And there's a double. One thing I will say too is Kubold is definitely more familiar with Saber than he is with Longsword, so I definitely get the impression that oftentimes the Saber can look a little bit more fluid than Longsword. It depends though. It's just the diversity of the Saber styles. You can definitely tell Kubold's strength is in Saber, so it's not like Kubold would deliberately make like Sabers weaker or anything, and that's what we're seeing here. But he wants the game to reflect realism, and so the Longsword will have some key advantages for sure. And a Maestro with a really well timed high guard cut, punishing Oaken's swings out of range, and wins him this round. Whoops, I skipped one of Oaken's wins, but oh well. We're just gonna continue. I don't want to waste too much time here. Maestro gets a flag, tying it up. Still, opening advantage for Oaken again. It is quickly nullified, but nonetheless worth mentioning, I think. Maestro throwing a bunch of swings, and that's a key way to defend against longsword swings that Oaken's doing there. Oaken backs away when he sees that he's in danger, and so it doesn't matter what sort of crushing power that longsword has. You know, whether it hits the weak, whether it hits the strong or the guard or whatever. If you're out of the way of this swing, I think I discussed this in the other video, but it's good to reiterate it. It doesn't matter how much he beats your blade. You're out of the way. You're safe, right? That's the most basic way to defend yourself is to simply back off and use your footwork. Dodging swings, just like in real life in this game, is difficult. You really should focus on blade work and linear movement to get out of the way of cuts oftentimes. You know, side movement can also work, but ideally with the blade helping you defend, not just dodging. But yeah, that's the key way to defend, just to stay back, use your footwork, and don't just stand still and try and parry it, like statically block it, I should say. But if you use the strong or the guard, sometimes you can get away with that too. It all depends on positioning, and it's something you learn through gameplay. And here Oaken has a small lead through all these exchanges, and again he defends those swings really well, even with that exposed arm. And Laszlo does not have a complex guard here. All he's got is a cross guard, so for Oaken to be doing this well from a defensive perspective is a really good showing for him for sure. Definitely one of the masters of distance management, which I can safely say, having fought him recently in the Saber only tournament. I got second place in that one, not first place. Finally got dethroned there as the Saber master, at least when it comes to the Saber only tournaments. But it was actually against Venator though, not Oaken. I managed to defeat Oaken despite the fact that he defeated me in the first round. But nonetheless, he destroyed me in that first round and with that Laszlo, and his Laszlo is just universally regarded as one of the best, if not the best, in the server. So to give some perspective, Maestro is also a very good longsword player. He defeated Warden recently, who is regarded as the best player. So you know it should tell you just how high level this contest is that we're having. I think there was a problem at some point here. Probably somebody's controller disconnecting. So we're just gonna skip and continue. Right, upward cut by Maestro, and you can see again how effortlessly Oaken blocks it. And I believe that's a double. Oh no, Oaken actually got it there. That was very clean. It almost looked like Maestro was gonna get that after blow. I don't remember these blow necessarily, but they come back as I watch, and I definitely remember the trends. You can see Oaken really testing the waters there. Maestro wins the trade. Quite convincingly, I'd say Maestro's hit was cleaner. But it could have been anybody's nonetheless. If Maestro was a bit unlucky, maybe the game would have considered him the loser there. Maestro wins barely, but again, very close. And we're able to repeat this over and over. We see this trend constantly, right? So it's not like a one-off thing where, oh, Saber defeated Longsword this once. There's definitely examples of Longsword winning. I've shown you that, and we're gonna see it here. But the trend certainly isn't that Longswords are just objectively dominating competitive play. That's not at all what's happening. What is happening is Longswords and Sabers have proven to be very competitive in their own right. And some of the best players use both of them. Rapiers too. I'm obviously neglecting rapiers a lot in this series, but I just don't use them enough to see myself as any sort of authority on them. Not in real life, and I don't use them in this game as often. So Saber will be the primary focus. Maybe I'll cover Rapier. I had a funny Rapier match against a Izzy main that went really well, so I could show that too. I do have a short about that as well. You can watch that. Some classic music playing in the background as they defeat this Isabella main really easily. And then there's the upward cut for Maestro. And Maestro, of course, now does have an opening advantage, a pretty convincing one. But damn, does he ever have to fight for it? It's not an easy time. He does a good job adjusting nonetheless, and that's what really helps him earn this win here. And I think Oaken is mistiming his counters here, which is resulting in doubles and not kills. Under a lot of pressure here, though. And, forced double. Better than just dying, though. That's the way I see it. Plenty to play for at this point. And Oaken gets a kill. And if I'm not mistaken, we're going to see him make a really good comeback. But it's not quite going to be enough. Some of the highest level gameplay you're ever going to see here. A lot of in and out. It's all about distance management. And there, the longsword crashes through Oaken's guard. That is because it hit the weak of the blade, as I was demonstrating in the previous video about defeating powerful swings. You gotta defend with the lower part of the blade towards the cross guard or towards your D guard, whatever you've got, and not towards the tip. If you block towards the tip, you're in some danger. The middle of the blade, it's a bit iffy, but you can do it, as we saw there. Sort of the center percussion is a bit better. But really, the closer to the hand, the better, as long as your hand's not in too much danger. And then Oaken gets another snipe there, and just a minute left in this video here, and you're going to see again Oaken make this really good comeback. Very good patience on his part, I would say. He definitely really wants that kill shot, but he's also doing a little bit of baiting Maestro in and also just waiting for his opportunity. If he sees one, he'll take it. Maestro's trying to get some initiative here, as you can see. But it doesn't quite work. Actually, Oaken's the one who gets initiative in the end because of that. And it comes down to the last flag. This is where Oaken will bite the dust, but he puts up a fight in the end. Maestro of High Guard, which is a very risky move on his part, but he knows how to land those cuts for sure. He's very good at that distance management in that guard, and he gets it. So very well done by Maestro as well, not just Oaken. Both fighters put on a really good display here. And here I've got that random characters tournament. That's where we use random characters and random maps decided by the spinner Venator used. I already showed this tournament in my videos before, so be sure to check it out. It's a really cool tournament. Give Venator support. One of the best commentators on the server, if not the best. And so I have the timestamps here for convenience because I would be looking through this for a long time if I didn't. So this is the first one here. Koala against Venator. Koala is a more recent member of the server, but nonetheless, he's proven to be, I think, among the best. He's one of those players who can get away with a lot of shenanigans and still win out. And yeah, so he's definitely a rising star in a lot of ways, and I've had tons of fun sparring with him. Very good tournament host too. Very good commentator. And here we see Koala get 2 kills. He's using Barabash here, and that's against Venator's Zera. Venator's Zera is not half bad, and he is a longsword main, so a lot of his skills will translate over. Venator's a more passive player. Some people have this myth about Zera that he has an impenetrable guard. It's not quite true, though, at all, as we're going to see. Nonetheless, Venator puts up a good fight. It's not an easy fight for Koala. Nobody's arguing that Zera is an easy character, though funnily enough, I sometimes find him rather easy. And this is what I sort of mean by shenanigans. Koala is sort of going for all these trick shots. He's not taking the fight perhaps as seriously as he should, but he can get away with that. He knows the rules of the game, but he breaks them anyway, and he's good enough that he can get away with breaking them. You gotta know the rules to break them in the first place and get away with it. And then Koala, a 1-2. One of the fastest combos in the game. Barabash is very good with those. That sidestep also hits very hard. Has plenty of wind up. Very comparable to many longsword blows in that regard. And you can tell he wants it. Very good sidestep against that thrust. That thrust from Zera is very deadly. But it's also one where Zera really commits himself, and that's a very good window to hit him. And in the pocket, Zera is weaker. That is a spot where you can hit him really easily. And very good using the distance there, the parry, and he gets a stab. Venator is limping. He can still do those immobile side steps. And he forces a double in the end. And Koala again with these dashes here, but it kind of intimidates Venator into throwing a swing out, and then Koala easily wins out there. So that's the first of these rounds done. We're not doing necessarily the full matches because these are random character fights, so like not all of them are the best examples. We're going to see a lot of rapiers here, for instance, Martas, etc. So the next one here, 113. 56. Yeah, that'll do. So this is Vinard against Carlos. Yeah, this one was definitely a good one as well, I would say. Vinard is a relatively new Isabella player, but Carlos is also not very good with sabers, so I'd say we're comparing two rookies in a way. They're both good players, don't get me wrong. Carlos definitely has a bit more experience than Vinard and whatnot, but they both have titles, and they're both veterans of the server at this point. So Vineyard's the guy who, of course, hosts the USFC. But nonetheless, these guys are unfamiliar with these characters, and it's really fascinating to watch these guys fight in unfamiliar territory. I could pick Carlos's performance with Alexander apart, of course, and Vineyard's performance with Isabella apart, since I main both of them, but that's not what we're here to do, necessarily. Nonetheless, though, I recall Carlos doing really well here, and there you go, you see he gets this good snipe there. Jumps into the sword that results in a double. That's definitely a danger of Alexander's jumping attack. But it is one of the better rush attacks, I would say, if you do it right. Carlos with very good distance management easily gets the cut to the head. And again, if you manage that distance well, Alexander has good reach. People often underestimate the reach of sabers. And Alexander and Yazek, they can reach out very far with those swings. Samuel, too, for that matter. Nonetheless, Vinner gets a hit to the hand. Another hit to the hand. Yeah, Vinner just, foot on the gas pedal here. He's a very aggressive Isabella player when he does play Isabella. And actually, we see Carlos doing like one of the swings I like doing with the retreat after the thrust. So it's funny. I'm saying he's a rookie if Alexander. Some of the stuff he's doing is not rookie at all, I would say. So props to him. And props to Vinard too. Vinard's fighting him on equal terms here. Regardless of character, like both of these guys are pretty good, so that's a good feat. It is the player that matters most. Upward cut by Carlos. That was perfectly timed, and it's like he intuitively knew when to throw that. So that was really when to throw that. So that was very good. And he's good at using the footwork to his advantage to defend against these cuts. Unfortunately, Vinard hunts him down there. I think Carlos was maybe a bit too passive there. And of course, Vinard just throwing all these swings here. Cut to the belly. He gets the win, okay? So it's not. The Saber didn't win here, but the Saber still put up a very good fight in inexperienced hands. I think it's fair to say that while they're both sort of rookies of these characters, Vinard has more experience with Isabella than Carlos does with Alexander lately. So, nonetheless, that was a good performance by Carlos. Again, unfamiliar territory. Alexander also has really hard to manage footwork if you are using him for the first time. It's very quick. It's some of the best footwork in the game. Arguably the best. It's hard to say, though. But it's definitely some of the fastest, and that can be a disadvantage if you don't know how to manage it. You can end up walking into attacks you didn't mean to walk into. Alright, so the next fight. It's funny I clicked off. I was at the right moment there, but that's okay. Alright, second last one. This has been running on for a while, but it'll be done soon. Stuntman, a recent member of the server. Isabella main against Koala. Koala can use a lot of people, a lot of characters, so that's why I don't specifically point out whether he's using his main or not. It doesn't really matter with him. He's one of those players who can just use anybody. But he's definitely good with sabers. He's good with rapiers. I think rapier is really his main, Marie to be specific. And Zara probably is another one, but he can use anybody. And Koala does something here that's really good, I would say. And it's something that I have done on video too that I should probably post, but essentially it's using the blade to beat those cuts aside. You can see it again there. He uses that blade to set them aside with those retreat cuts. I don't know if that was his intent behind it, or if he was just trying to get a retreat snipe onto Stuntman, but either way, that was very, very good play on his part. And that's another good way to defend against those powerful swings. Don't parry them or even block them, just beat them as they're moving. Let the blade go down its intended path, but help it along with that swing. Sometimes that gives you a free hit. And Koala here actually is able to overpower Stuntman. Stereotypically, it's the longsword that'll overpower because of the leverage and the weight behind it, but sabers have a lot of cutting power in their own right. And good footwork here against the head. Stuntman getting a bit aggressive, I would say. And it's funny, I say Stuntman is a recent addition. I think they're both roughly similar with experience at this point. I'm not entirely sure. It's hard to say. Anyway, Stuntman throwing a bunch of swings. I think Koala is more collected for sure out of the two. He's a very calm fighter. We're not seeing a lot of shenanigans. It's funny, I was talking about that a lot, but we don't see that right away. Now we're starting to see it though. He does grapples out of range, and it's to try and provoke Stuntman to come in. And he does this even against skilled players. And he hits the head there. Retreat cut from Laszlo, very good move. Retreat cut with sabers in general can be a good option. And Stuntman actually here with a very good sidestep. So Stuntman definitely has his moments here too with Isabella. But again, we're seeing skill here is really what is enabling him to get these hits. Not so much brute force. Brute force is helpful at times, but it's not really the decisive factor. And Koala catches the blade with the strong again, that concept we were talking about in the previous video, and he gets a cut to the head. Of course, he's doing these grapple here. He knows he's gonna win, I should say. It's just a matter of how much. By how much will he win? He's doing all these sidesteps. He unfortunately pays for it here, right? But I bet you Koala had it in him for sure to just end it right away if he wanted to. There he actually tried to his credit, but doesn't quite get it. Good defense again though with the strong of the blade. Nice thing is this game does some of that work for you. I make it sound more complicated than it really is in that regard. If you're positioned right, you'll basically block with the strong every time, and you don't have to worry too much about it. And there's a hit to the head by Koala, finishing it. And so the final fight here, it's going to be 3-10-50. Koala with Yazek, Carlos with Isabella. Carlos is more so a rapier player. I was saying he's not a saber main. He's really not a longsword main either. But nonetheless, he has experience with Isabella, so he's definitely not clueless either. Yeah, so he's not so much in unfamiliar territory. It's just he's rusty. But I say that he's definitely not playing like a rusty Isabella right now, by any means. In fact, he did a pretty advanced combo just now, trying to bait his opponent, and he is a humanist in real life. He actually does this IRL, so he brings some knowledge to the game that he sort of has by default, which helps. And then qualifies sides of that. Again, even fight. Saber versus Longsword. Is Longsword really so overpowered? I mean, we're definitely not seeing that here, so. And Koala using footwork here, but I think he maybe got a bit too aggressive in the end. Then again, though, Yazet sometimes hits with pretty weak force. He's definitely an okay Saber character, not a particularly powerful one. So, Koala does have that working against him here, for sure. That's probably worth noting. Yazek isn't terrible, but he's also not amazing in any regard either. Except maybe Reach. Reach is something he has plenty of for a Saber. And Koala has his back against the wall, but nonetheless makes the best use of the space he does have. Upward cut ends up just slamming that into the blade. But again, really good footwork. It's very subtle, but just that subtle change in positioning allows him to get a clean hit to the head. Again, going to show that longswords really do not have the impenetrable guard some people think. It's just that they're heavy, so you can't break through them as easily. You have to work around them unless you also have a longsword. Then you can hit the weak and dominate that way. But that's the thing, you don't want to play the longswords game, you want to play your own game. And Koala's doing a good job of that. Carlos being patient, Koala really wanting that retreat cut, but all he achieves in doing so is giving Carlos his hand. But that's a very easy mistake to do. Thrust by Carlos. He almost gets punished, but Carlos actually adjusted to Koala's counter. He saw it coming and then sidestepped. So very skillful play by Carlos with Isabella. I think Koala did everything right. It's just he didn't expect that second counter. And sometimes when you're countered, you're just dead. It's sort of too bad. And he's doing a lot of these snap cuts and sidesteps, which I really like. And actually, Carlos doing some of those snap cuts too. They're both sort of feeling each other out now. They're not eager to get stuck in necessarily. And I think Koala likes being in the corner sometimes. So it may look like he's on the back foot, but I'm sure he's perfectly happy. And oh, this is beautiful. It's exactly what I was demonstrating earlier. This time with Yazik. So let's see if we can go slow motion. I just really want to demonstrate here the longsword can be blocked, even if it's a very powerful swing. So Koala stuck in the corner. You're going to see Carlos charge up that swing any moment now. Gonna go a bit slow. Yeah, they're both really testing the waters here, trying to play it safe. I just really want to capture this because this is such a crucial moment. And here he comes down, and it also helps that the tip of the blade is hitting. This is probably something I neglected to mention a little bit, but the part of the longsword that hits matters just as much as the part of the weapon that defends it. So if only the tip hits, you have more of a chance of blocking, certainly, than if the center of percussion of the sword hits, where you'd be in more trouble perhaps. So here, the blade doesn't hit the blade so much, it hits the D guard. You can see that here. I'll get out of slow motion now. It took way too long. But nonetheless, Koala easily blocks that. Which goes to show, and he immediately counters. Look at that. Hit to the head. Textbook play by Koala. And Koala not afraid to close in. That's another thing. You don't want to be afraid of the longsword. If a longsword player is overly passive, you can easily punish that. I think that goes for largely any weapon. It's just the way you go about it might be slightly different. Especially with rapiers, the way you do it with rapiers. And again, in the pocket, push. Koala gets the win. So Yazek, not the best saber character at all, but he gets the win nonetheless. Carlos is a very experienced player, so that is not an easy feat whatsoever for Koala. So congrats to Koala on that victory there for sure. And so I hope this video was helpful. I intended to show a variety of scenarios, a variety of skill levels in the saber versus longsword fights. And generally speaking, we see the sabers competing just fine. There's nothing about the longsword that makes it overpowered. It's a powerful weapon. It can certainly be intimidating, but really, we're not seeing longswords dominate competitive play any more than the sabers are. And certainly Warden plays Isabella, and he's the best player in the game, but I think that's more to do with Warden being a badass than it is with him using Isabella. Isabella is definitely one of the stronger characters, there's no doubt about that, as is Zera, but by no means overpowered, and very beatable. It's just that this game goes by realism, so the way it's balanced might not be as intuitive to some people who are used to like regular fighting games, but nonetheless, I think the game is very well balanced. It's just that it's balanced more like real life, not perfectly. It's a game still, but more like real life. So you have to think about it a bit differently than you might in a lot of other games. But either way, I hope this was helpful. This will be the end of the series. This video has gone on long enough, but there's definitely more examples I can pull. And I hope this is helpful to anybody watching, and definitely feel free to use these videos to debunk anybody who is spreading myths about the how OP longswords are. Alright, take care, guys.